Hi, Walliams squad. This is all a little bit weird, isn't it? Story time like no other. I hope you're all okay, especially those of you that are at home. You're not too bored. My house is an absolute mess because we're moving house on Saturday, hopefully. So you get the one bit of the house that looks vaguely like a house and not a cardboard box. I'm very excited. Dan's at work, so I get to actually sit in the gaming chair to do today's story time, which is very exciting. I will carry on from where you left off yesterday. Ivy approached the first cautiously. "Be not uncarefully," whispered Scratch. She felt him vibrating in her pocket and gave him an appreciative squeeze. When she was in front of the first feather, it began writing. Prisoner 4. Name 2 grade Lil. Crime fraud. Status awaiting sentence. Ivy peered through the glass and found a neon-lit square room beyond. A woman with scruffy red hair in a tartan beret and football kit was lying on a plastic bench, picking at her nails. The next 2 cells were empty, and the one after that was filled with a strange green light that made Izzy feel dizzy. Not Izzy, Ivy. Made Ivy feel dizzy. "Ghoul hole," Scratch explained in a tinkling whisper. "Cell for special uses with muckers. Losing of memory inside, so Londoner, being ever forgotten." Ivy shivered. So if a mucker went inside a ghoul hole, they lost their memory. Wow. Uncommoners really did go the extra mile to keep Londoner a secret. As she approached the next door, the feather began writing again. Prisoner 2. Name Valian K. Crime theft of a bell from Ethel Dread. Status investigation pending. If you're not sure what pending means, pause, go and find out. Ivy gasped. Valian! She could see him sitting on the edge of the bench, rubbing his bare arms as if trying to warm himself. His mouth was a tight line. Ivy bit her lip. If he was in there, he must have been arrested earlier and not run away. She wondered if he'd really stolen a bell from Ethel. She wasn't sure how she felt about him being locked up. Maybe he deserved it. She shook her head. She didn't have time to work it out. She was here for her brother. She moved on to the next cell. When she saw who was in there, her heart pounded. Seb. He was scrunched up in the corner, his knees tucked under his arms, the lead from his headphones creeping down his chest. His grey hood was hanging low over his eyebrows, but Ivy could still see his face. There were dark circles under his eyes and a scratch across his cheek. He looks terrible. She ran her hand across the glass. She needed to get inside. The feather swished around by her head again. Prisoner 3. Name unknown. Grandson of Sylvie Wrench. Crime. That bit was blank. Status awaiting interrogation. Ivy examined the cell door. There was no handle, but she saw a small opening that looked like a keyhole. With the invisibility candle in her left hand, Ivy got onto her knees to take a closer look. There must be some way to get it open. She did a quick inventory of her tools. Grandma Silver's handbag contained some bits of paper, a small packet of tissues, a silk scarf, and a purse full of coins. The pockets in Valian's jacket were all empty. The only thing left was the grubby piece of canvas she'd taken from the House of Bowls. Inside was the small paintbrush, hammer, and the uncommon piece of string that had secured the canvas. She ran her fingers across them thoughtfully, wondering if they might be useful. She had no idea how to pick a lock. In movies, people used hairpins and wire. She grabbed the uncommon string, wondering what to do with it. The heat coming from it was especially ticklish, like warm pins and needles under her skin. She swung it around experimentally in front of her, but nothing happened. Something about it tugged at the corners of her memory. She'd seen someone using it before. Of course, she realised, the puppeteer. She tied the string onto her middle finger, just as he'd done. Immediately, the string started to move of its own accord, snaking through the air like a white cotton worm. Ivy directed it towards the lock, where it slipped inside. She wiggled her finger slightly. She could feel the string turning inside as if it was made of steel. Click. There was a deep groan and the door edged open. Ivy tugged the string out of the lock and leaped to her feet. It worked! She couldn't believe it. She cast her eyes along the corridor to check that she was still alone, stuffed the string inside the canvas and hauled back to the heavy cell door. Seb was on his feet as she burst in. He ripped his headphones out of his ears. Seb! Ivy! Where are you? He swept back his hood, frowning as his eyes strained. Is this some kind of trick? Ivy thrust the invisibility candle into Grandma Silver's handbag, hearing the flame crackle back to life. She watched the air around her shift for a second, and then Seb blinked. Ivy! He rushed forward and grabbed her, pulling her close. His top smelled of damp sweat. I can't believe you're... How did you? She pushed him away. There's no time to explain now. We have to get out of here. Seb's face darkened. Yeah, I know. He looked into the hallway. Are you on your own? Ivy winced. Not exactly. She held the door open. Come on, we have to be quick. Just then, she heard the clack of footsteps in the corridor. Wait, she whispered, shoving Seb back inside. She caught a flash of black cloak as she heaved on the cell door, leaving it ajar. Her heart was in her mouth as she waited for the footsteps to fade. After a minute, they both crept outside. Ivy checked for patrolling underguards. The place was empty. We've got to find a way back to the street, she said. There must be a fire exit somewhere. She dashed along the corridor, away from the reception. There was a sign on the wall pointing to the armoury, with a symbol of a toilet brush on it. Ivy turned the other way, Seb hard on her heels. Came a muffled voice. Ivy, Seb whispered, did you know that your pocket's moving? Ivy frowned and poured Scratch out. Scratch, what's up? Stables, horses. Outing way through stables, he said enthusiastically. Scratch outside from scene. Seb's jaw dropped. Ivy, did that thing just... Ivy grabbed his sweatshirt. It doesn't matter. Look for the stables.